So Vanessa, I'm gonna let you take it from here to open us and ground us in.
All right. Well, welcome. Good evening. I thought I'd just do a short meditation just to kind of help us transition from our outside day and bring us into this sacred circle that we have. And kind of embedded in here, I'm going to do a little bit of what they call a chinkai practice. And chinkai is a Quechua word, and it's entering into the stillness. And when we get to that part, if you can vocalize it, those Quechua words are vibrational. So just by speaking them, it brings them into your body and helps you kind of integrate the concept. And, you know, we're going to be focusing on the heart. And right now I feel that the heart is so important because, you know, we're just being bombarded with a lot of information, and our heart is a place of, you know, our truth. And that, you know, it's a good place to hang out. It's a good portal. So with that, just find a position of comfort and a place where your spine is erect and that you're free to breathe up and down. And we'll just focus on our breathing. Feel the inhale of the air through your nostrils, down to your belly, and exhale the tensions of the day. And bring your awareness to the bottom of your feet, and imagine roots coming from the bottom of your feet and the base of your spine into the Pachamama, deep into the earth. And on an inhale, drink up the energy like you would liquid through a straw. Bring it into your heart center and allow it to fill your whole being. Now focus at the top of your head, your crown, and imagine filaments going up into the heavens, to the sky, to the cosmos, to the sun, to the great central sun. And on the inhalation, imagine that and its radiance coming into your body, into your heart, streaming into your whole being. And the next inhalation, imagine both streams from the heavens and the earth coming in and mixing in your heart. And feeling that anchoring in this place on earth. And here we'll do a little bit of the chinkai practice. And inhale, and on the exhale, it's chinkai. 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 And try a few of these on your own. And now feel the stillness in your heart. And see if there's a message there for you. And when you're ready, in your own right time, open your eyes and bring yourself back into the room, refreshed and with an open heart, ready to receive the wisdom teachings of Lucinda. Aho.
Oh, well, thank you, Vanessa. That was a really great lead in to what I'm going to be talking about. Most of you I've met, not all of you, but a good many of you. But for those that don't know a lot about me, I've been on this path for, gosh, close to 30 years. My initial path was with Native teachers, both in upstate New York and in Colorado and South Dakota. And then I met the Caro in the 90s and have been working with that path since then. Although I have to say I kind of did it reluctantly. The first time I met the Caro, they gave me a transmission, which literally, knocked my socks off. I mean, I didn't know anything about them, but I could feel the power. And in some ways, I think I might have been afraid of it. So it took me a number of years to actually start working more consistently with them. And from then on, I went to Peru. I've worked with teachers who brought teachings to America, and I've worked with the Caro here in Peru. So like those of you that were on Kim's program, I'm a hybrid. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I can't deny the power of the teachers that I've had over time. A lot of them have been women, but there've been some men. It's been quite a journey, and it's a journey that started by getting my butt kicked. As many of us, getting on the path happens when we either get ill or we lose a job or a divorce. For me, it was about people dying, but it was a great path of healing. And I really feel like the working through the grief and the multiple grief, because it was multiple people, opened me up to some real beauty. And it opened me up to the beauty of connection. And through that connection, as Vanessa was showing us, it's really about a path of the heart. The paqos that many of us have worked with, they talk about this is a path of the heart. It's a path of feeling. And most of the learning that I do is experiential. I try to not spend too much time in my head. And sometimes when I get teachings, my body absorbs it. And it's years later, or even, I don't know, it just starts to come back. It's a way of remembering. We are in great times of change, as Leah said. These teachings are a great comfort to us. And more than that, the teachings are embedded in both our own bodies, they're embedded in nature. And we can look at nature as a place to receive information, to receive healing, and to receive our direction, where are we going to be going during these times of change? So that's part of what I want to talk about tonight. I work experientially, and, I sat with, well, do I do this? Do I do that? Do I do the straight Quechua? Do I, I went back and forth. And then this morning I woke up in a dream and I was working with the Mukis in the dream. For those of you that know the path of the Andes, the Mukis are in the fourth layer of the earth, and they're the doctors, and I've been having some stomach trouble. So I woke up with them working on my stomach, and I'm going, okay, so what should I be teaching? And, they're like, go with your first instinct. So what I'm going to be going over tonight is about connection, and it's about connection to nature in the way that I do it, and the way that some of the ways that I've been taught. And all of you, from looking across you, this is a very mature group. I will say that. And you've had much experience on your own. So look at this as one perspective, it's one petal on a flower that you might use. But also, even if you've done the exercise that I'm going to be going over, what I ask is that you really go into it and you feel in a new way. As we change into the new times, we're changing as well. The earth is changing, and all the beings that are part of the earth are changing as well. So something that you may have known or you may have experienced before may be different at this time. So I really encourage you to just experience and feel. And that's, when I say that, it's about opening the heart, as Vanessa talked about. But it's more than that. Sometimes in these times of change, we'll find that opening our heart is not so easy, especially if we're struggling. And so some of the ways that we'll be connecting will allow you to work through that. But if it still doesn't work, then there are other ways that you connect and get information, get that comfort, and get that solace. So, and some of these have come from teachers that are not Caro. Some of them, the teachings have come from people in South America, but also Central America and North America. So, as I said, I'm a hybrid and I assimilate things. So, and I'm also nervous. So, this is the first time I've actually taught anything online. I've taught one-on-one when some of you who are here have sat with me, but the online thing is a new thing for me. So let's call in directions. Let's open sacred space. And as I said, I am a hybrid, so I am not going to call in necessarily in the traditional way. But I would like you to look at what is actually, what do the directions mean? Not in your head, but in your heart. How do they feel? Each one will have a different connection to you depending on the time, depending on the space that you're in, but also how open you are. You know, our consciousness and the level of consciousness that we're able to work with enables us to have more information or more connection. So for tonight, we're going to open the directions and we'll start in the east. And I'd ask you to close your eyes. I'm not going to stand and turn around, but you may if you'd like to. But you can also turn with your intention. And that's something that, you know, I urge you to do as well. So I'm going to start facing east. And I call in east. I call in the dawning of a new day, the dawning of a new time. I call in the winged ones that fly us towards Great Spirit, towards Creator, Wirikocha, that help us to be that bridge between the stars and the cosmos and the earth. Come, be with us. And I turn to the south, and I call in the south. I call in the beauty and the strength of all that beings and the power that is close to the earth, that sees with our eyes exactly as it is. It teaches us about the beauty way. It teaches the beauty of putting our bellies on the earth, moving out of our emotions and into the strength of this sensation. Come. Help us to find those seeds and plant them and let them grow into the bounty of the south. Come, sweet ones, come. And I turn to the west, the place of transformation, the place of great change. This is also the place of where we move into the setting of the day, into the mystery that cracks between the worlds. The threshold. It is our threshold that we cross into the dream time and into the knowing and into the silence. It is also the threshold of transformation, that which we need to move beyond, that which we need to release. Come. And then I turn to the north. The north, where we move into the stillness of night, where we move into that place of healing that comes from within, from the chinkai, from meditation. We move into the north, we call upon the ancestors. We call upon the healers that work through us and with us. We call on those who help us remember those deep ways of knowing that maybe we have forgotten. We also look to the Sami, the joy that comes out of connection and our stillness. Come. So we reach To the earth, to Pachamama, sweet Pachamama, Mother Earth, to all of the nature beings. We ask you to send your fire and your serpent energy up into us, to work through us, and to create that great Saiwa, that great column of energy, which passes through our heart and touches the sky, touches the cosmos, touches the four suns and beyond. And we give great thanks to all the blessings for all that sustains us. Sweet Mother, sweet nature, come and be with us and bestow your blessings upon us. Powers of the above, Viracocha, Creator, Great Spirit. Shasta, the stars, Shaskaruna, the star people, higher vibrational star people. The sun, Hitaitai, Mama Kia, Grandmother Moon. All the celestial beings. We invite you to work with us tonight. We invite you to hold each of us in our hearts. Help us to hear with our hearts, our ears, to see with our eyes, and to know. And most of all, help us to remember. Remember the seeds that are within us, the seeds we are sprouting, that each of us are growing. Help us to water them and nurture them, and so that we can know the fullness of our being. Okay. So the exercise that I have planned tonight is really an extension of what we just did. Hang on just a second. It's one that many of you may have already done. It comes from multiple traditions that I've walked with. And I first learned it from a man who'd studied with the Huichol from Mexico. And then I did it again when I was with a teacher that worked for the borderlands of Peru, the area that's up above Pocatambo. So there are many, it's a basic core teaching. And it's really about connecting. And we're going to connect with the directions in a different way. And the intent that we're going to be setting is to find the direction that is our source of strength. We all have one, excuse me. And oftentimes when we do our medicine work, if we're facing that direction, it can actually enhance the power that we're doing. There may also be directions that when you face them, they may weaken you, or they may give you sensations that are not so pleasant. And that's information for you. It's information about maybe the hucha you need to release. It can also be information about, there's another teacher that says that it's about the way that you were born. What direction were you facing when you were born, in the magnetic alignment of the earth at that time? And sometimes that can help, that can facilitate the fact that there's a weakness when you face a certain direction. And if that's the case, then you can work with that direction to actually realign yourself with the magnetism of the earth and actually change that. It's all a process. So the actual process that we're going to do is, and it's one you're welcome to turn off your camera for, we're going to stand, excuse me, I'm getting tickles in my throat, but we're going to stand and we're going to start east. And as the first thing we're going to do is we're going to introduce ourselves. You know, the paqos say that all connection is about relationship, whether it's with the apus or whether it's with Pachamama. You want to treat them as you would a friend that you're making, a new friend, or maybe an old friend that you're greeting. You know, let them know your name, your whole name. Let them know what your intent is. What is it you're seeking as part of this relationship? Let them know something about your heart. You know, for those of you who've been doing this work for a while, it's pretty easy to open your heart and connect. You may even send a thread from your heart, a seke, out to each direction with your love, with your gratitude. And as you send that seke, feel. That's all I can say is feel. The paqos will often send you out and say, just go and do it. You know, listen, feel. They don't explain a whole lot. And this is an exercise where the explanation can kind of get in the way. So it really is about sending that thread out if you choose to work that way. If you've never done that, then you can just, with your intention or with rattle, you can send the energy out and let it come back to you. You know, as Vanessa said, maybe there's a message for you. Maybe there's a color. Maybe there's a sensation. Maybe you feel warmth in your body. I did this exercise again this afternoon just because it'd been a long time since I'd done it. And in one direction, I could really feel it like kind of punch me in the stomach. And it wasn't a negative thing, but it was about pointing out where my own hucha was, you know, where is my work with that direction. Especially in these times of change, it's important that we know both where our work is and also where our support is. And this one is really about first finding your support. What is the support that's going to give you the most strength and the most stability? So we're going to start east, and so you'll introduce yourself. This is also a path of Aini. And as you work this, you know, we don't have despachos or the tools to do high pipe, 3 kentus that we can do offering, which the paqos may do. But you can offer your breath and you can offer your love. It's always important that when you approach a connection that you offer something. You know, even before I knew the name for Aini, my native teachers would always say, take tobacco, take cornmeal, you know, whatever it is, and make that little offering from your heart. And if you have nothing, leave a hair of your head. You know, I remember once when I was, you know, up in upstate New York, and I was trying to connect with this beautiful tree. I mean, it was an amazing tree. It still is. She's still there. But she's a grandmother tree. And, you know, I walked up to her, I leaned against her, I opened my heart, and I could feel the warmth coming from this tree. But I hadn't brought anything with me, you know, and that was before I knew about, you know, giving a hair or your breath. So what I had with me was a little packet of stones that I carried with me the whole time. And I took one of the crystals out of there and I buried it at her base. And, you know, it was just like a real exchange. And then I left and I kept getting pulled back to this tree. And at this time I had a really heavy teaching schedule and I was, you know, crazy life. And it took me about 6 weeks to get back. And when I came back, I actually was told to unbury the crystal and to keep it with me. And I still have this crystal. But at that time, the connection was really solidified. I knew the tree knew who I was. And in a way that was very profound. And so when I would go to this tree, I could actually ask for a message. And I don't see with my eyes, I see with my inner eyes, I hear. But when I would actually touch this tree and ask a question, I would get an image. And, you know, the first time I was at the point, this was at the point where the first people were dying in my life. And I just said, you know, what's going to happen? What's next? And the image that I got was a green fog, you know, and I thought, oh, great. You know, here I am walking through the fog for a while. But every message has different sides to it, different aspects. And when I say that it's a green fog, well, it's a fog. Yes, that part was true. But it was also a green fog where I was supported by nature, by the trees, by the beings, and by my teachers. So, you know, so that's one way of looking at the Aini. So as we step into these directions, we'll start with one of the cardinal directions, but I really urge you to take little steps as you turn so that at least 2 directions between the cardinal directions are ones that you connect with. And the reason for that is oftentimes your strongest direction may not be a cardinal direction. Mine is not. You know, mine is one of the in-between ones. And I can actually feel the difference between the cardinal direction, the first step and the second step. One is stronger than the other. So this is getting out of your head about it always has to be the 4 cardinal directions. And as you turn and do that, you can feel with different centers. For those of you that work with the 3 centers, the Cusco, the heart and the head, the eyes, you can actually send out a thread from each of those and see how it feels. You can connect them and send it through the heart. There's many ways to do this. I have one teacher who, her way of connecting was through the throat. And it was a really strong way of connecting, and one that when I try to connect, it goes to my heart and it kind of automatically envelops my throat as well. So the throat can be a very strong way to connect as well, you know, so that sending that thread out with your breath, with, you know, like the wind. So if the heart is not open, and sometimes life will just make it so our hearts are not wide open, or we don't have the ability to open it, then try the throat. Try your solar plexus. All of these things can be information about how you are and how you work at this time. We're all different. We're all on the path, but the path that we take is all different and unique. It's not going to be the same for me as it is for Leah or for Billy or for Lee. You know, we're all going to find our way. And the paqos that many of us work with, they say to find your way, you know, to make it your own work, to let the work evolve. There are other paqos that say, no, this is strict, it has to be this way. So follow your heart, that's all I can say, you know. It's not a path if you have to do it one way or the other. This is about discovery, but also look at it with adventure. You know, this is an adventure. And even if you've done it before, when I did it again today, yes, my strong direction was still the same, but the ones that were not as strong were different. So let's stand. I'm actually going to continue to sit just so you can see me. And well, maybe I can. Well, let's see. So we'll stand and we'll face east. So if you know where east is in your room, just be cognizant of that. Behind you would be your west, and then your south and your north. And the reason is to really notice that and to open your eyes and to see what is there, is so that as you move, as you feel each direction and the ones in between, when something's strong, open your eyes and really notice that so that you have that information. So we'll start by facing east. And I'm not going to say a whole lot at this point. What I will say is that we will probably move a little faster tonight than you normally would. And it's like many exercises that we do in a teaching that has limited time. So if that's the case and you wish to go back to it, then do so. Take what you can get from it in the time that we have tonight. If you're not finished with, when I say move to the next cardinal direction, that's okay. You can trail along behind, or you can come back to it. Either one is okay. What we will do is when everyone is done, if you would turn your camera back on so I have an idea when everybody is finished. But this is a personal journey and I don't want to rush you, but at the same time, Leah keeps saying, don't go too long, don't go long. So we'll try it for tonight. So just stand and face east. Introduce yourself. Offer your gratitude, your irony, and feel. When you're ready, Begin to move to the right, to move clockwise. The two directions that are between east and the south. And spend your time in each of these places, feeling and sensing. And when you're ready, take another step. Sometimes you may want to step back and then step forward again. And if a thought comes in, let it drift away. And move back into sensation. And step another 30 degrees to the right. Step into the south, the cardinal direction south. Ground yourself in the earth. Send out that thread of energy. And listen and feel. And begin to move to those places between south and west. Notice the difference between the directions, the cardinal directions, and those in between. Maybe these are new to you. Maybe your relationship isn't as strong. Begin to move again. Giving your gratitude. Your breath, your life. Begin to approach the west. Stepping into west. And call on west, the powers of the west, however you see them. Come and join you to teach you. And begin to feel. What is your body telling you? Are you slouching, standing up straighter? Is your heartbeat slow or fast? We give our thanks to west. Begin to turn, feeling those places between the west and the north. Open your heart or your throat. The three centers. The connection to Pachamama and the above, the celestial realms. Feel. Listen. Begin to turn again. Breathe this new direction. And say your thanks. And begin the journey to the north. Reach beyond the words, beyond what your teachers have said the north is. And know the north. Know it with all your being. And call on the ancestors, your own ancestors, the ancestors of your teachers, the medicine beings of the three worlds. And say your thanks. And begin your journey back to the east. Stopping at each place between the east. When you're finished, you may face the east or your camera. Just know that you can go back. And you can do this exercise again, and it'll change. It'll change with time of day. It'll change with season. It'll change with your own knowing, your state of being. But remember that direction that is your power, that is your strength, that is your strong support. And note for ones that the relationship maybe is not as strong and you have work to do. So if you're not back, take a few minutes to finish up and come back to center. So I guess I'd like to just take a few minutes to have you talk about how that was for you. I know it was fast, so yes, tell me it was too fast. I know that. That's part of what we're doing tonight, and that's a limitation we're working with. So would anybody like to start? You'll have to unmute yourself or, yeah, to do that.
Start.
Okay.
It was kind of fast, but, and I really enjoyed East, but maybe that's because I was excited about trying it. I don't know. I actually did 2 revolutions to see how it felt the second time around. And so the East felt very just positive to me, very light. The first revolution, I didn't really feel anything more until I got to the West. And when I was facing West, I felt very, very hot, like I started sweating, and I had to take off my sweater. And I even checked the thermometer because I'm like, is it me or is it, really hot? And I had to open the door to let some cooler air in here. I don't have on the heater or anything because, I'm in Peru and we're in winter. Anyway, and I thought, well, that was real interesting. I pointed to the north, and of course I live in South America. So I'm like, you know me, I'm from there, I'm from the north. And that felt nice. Anyway, so I did another revolution, and the east, again, it felt very nice. And then when I face south, because my apartment faces south, and the mountains that I get to see are, just when I look out my window, are super familiar to me, and I love them. And it just felt really comfortable and really familiar and nice. And then, I did, like you said, I did 2 points in between each cardinal point, and I didn't feel anything really in particular in those. But yeah, so that's basically what happened for me.
Yeah. Well, you can always go back and do it, especially doing it outside is wonderful where you're standing on the ground. If it wasn't winter, I'd say use your bare feet, but you may not want to do that this time of year.
No. But thank you. It was a lovely experience. I said my full name. I introduced myself. I threw out sekes. And yeah, that I think it's certainly worthy of more investigation.
Good. Thank you.
And I'm a Scorpio too. So like death is a thing for me. And I know I've been told you're supposed to face east when you do ceremony, or face a particular mountain if you're doing that. And I've been told by more than one teacher not to face west, that it undoes stuff. But I don't know, what are your, well, I shouldn't ask you because you don't want to say anything now. Maybe later you can say what your thoughts are on the west.
Okay, yeah.
Because
I'll
it
talk
feels
about
very
my
attractive to
experience.
me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else?
I had, it was pretty intense experience. When I was moving from west to north, it was almost like I was being pushed back on my heels, almost like a strong wind, but it didn't feel like a wind. But I felt myself rocking. It was very intense physically. I can't say that part was comfortable, but it was very interesting. So I feel like you felt that it's really something I want to do more and explore. Because it feels, the intention behind it, it really focused my experience instead of just calling in the directions. So thank you, Lucinda. That was
You're welcome.
really
Thank you.
powerful.
Anybody else?
I'll go.
Okay. Thank you.
I've never done this before, so it was awesome. And the East, I felt like I was being, I always associate the East with the apples, and I was being pulled into the ground, like heavy, like my legs got heavy. I have an injury, in my, or kind of a recent, but a healing injury in my knee, and it started hurting. But it was like, I literally was just being pulled down into the ground and forward. My weight was also forward. So that was That was interesting.
Yeah.
And then the South, and the transitional spaces in between the cardinal directions were literally, I could just like letting go, coming up, letting go. It was like an in between the trend. But in the South, it seemed very light and pleasant and familiar to me. And then the West, my throat tightened. Like tightened. And then the North, my heart expanded and I got emotional. So I don't know what it all means, but that's where it is.
And that's something for you to sit with.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to discern. And maybe
But I was amazed at the different. I mean, I was really truly amazed. Thank you for this. It was very, yeah.
yeah. And you can go back, and if there's something that's not clear, you can actually, once you start those relationships, especially with the in-between directions, which are new to many, you can actually start to ask for a message or ask for a color, ask for clarity. You know, this is a relationship, and it's a direct relationship. It's not the calling in directions that we're taught. This is about you and that direction. And what does they have to offer you? What do you have to offer them? Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, I just want to say it was a really powerful experience. It was really, yeah, helpful in some way. I felt really deep connection, mainly with each of the cardinal directions, and all kinds of things were happening. I won't go into all of it, but it was interesting in the South. I felt this big welling up of emotion and tears, and I was offering my tears, and the message back was, you know, we don't want your tears, we want your light. And so I was like, oh, okay. Yeah,
Beautiful.
that was really beautiful. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'd like to share. That was truly beautiful, and I call the directions, you know, almost every day, and I frequently teach the directions, so I'm very, very familiar with the energies of each of them. But I have never taken that time in the cross directions, and that was beautiful. I really. Between the east and the south, I spoke to the direction, and she just said, "Fly," and that was so beautiful. And then another direction, I had this just overwhelming sense of peace and joy. So it was. I mean, I felt something in all four of those cross directions, but different in each one. So thank you for reading that. I will do that again.
Yeah, and again. So, if no one else would like to speak, kind of last call, then I'd like to end with a story. So, anybody else?
I just like to say that I admired that you had your rattle out, and so I stepped in the hallway to my basket of rattles, and I pulled out this rattle, and I really hadn't had her out in a very long time, and I really want to play with it more with doing this in a slower way and doing it outdoors. But I forgot how powerful this rattle is, and I'm really, really glad. I found this piece of driftwood. I don't know if you can see, but on one side, on that side, it looks like a bird.
Huh?
And then on this side, it looks kind of like a snake.
Nice.
And then it's a gourd, and there's shells that I found. One shell is from Scotland, but it has crystals and beans, and I don't remember what all else besides crystals and some different kinds of beans. But I made it over 30 years ago. But yeah, it felt really nice to be doing the directions with this rattle, and especially when I came back around to doing the east the second time, I really had the sense that my ancestors, especially my mother and my aunt, were with me, and other guides. So that felt really nice. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, that brings up a good point. I mean, I use the rattle, but you can drum. You can also dance as you start to move around the directions, you know, moving your feet, noticing where you feel light, you know, noticing where it really jazzes you up. You know, so there are different ways of doing it. And so I really urge you to explore it and see where it goes. So thank you all. Thank you for the courage to step into that. So the
Wanted to just say one more thing, Lucinda,
yeah,
which I wanted to thank you for. You know, in Peru, the maps don't, north isn't up.
yeah.
It's however it fits best on the page. It's terrible. And so I got my little compass here. I've been trying so hard because I'm pretty near the equator, but still the sun doesn't really rise in the east. It's northeast at the moment, and it sets in the southeast. And so I'm really trying to learn the direction. So thank you for helping me with that. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and on top of that, the magnetic poles of the earth are shifting and moving too, so that can make it a little a little harder with your compass too. So, okay. So the story I'm going to tell, if you've worked with me, those that have worked with me before have heard a version of it. This is a story about that really relates to times of change. It's a story that I heard first from a woman who was in my community when I was studying with the Seneca in upstate New York. And then I heard it again from Orrin Lyons, who's the chief of the Onondaga. So they're different versions of the story, but they all have truth and they all work off the same core. So like many stories, this one happens long ago, but this was also a time of great change. Like we are in now, you know, the wheel continues to turn, and this isn't the first turning of the wheel. And in this time, this is the people of the Finger Lakes. And when I say the people, I mean the Haudenosaunee, the Onondaga. They call themselves the people rather than the tribe, you know. But the people had stepped away some from their old ways. Like many of the indigenous people who had their ways, their knowledge, and their wisdom, over time they began to forget. The forgetting can sometimes be just a little bit, and on the outside, the forms stay the same, but the heart isn't there. And sometimes it's about a real shift, one of those places of transition. And this is one of those. So this starts with the people. Some say it was a young man and a young woman. Some say it was a group of men who were out hunting. But they came upon a little tiny serpent. But this serpent had two heads. And this isn't the story of the serpent and the knowledge that you know. This is a different serpent story. But this serpent had two heads. And it was really, really beautiful. Its skin was bright silver and bright gold. And at first they looked at it and they go, wow, this is really beautiful. And they admired it in its place in nature, in the place where it was at home. And then they began to look at it and go, why does it have two heads? That's interesting. Look how beautiful it is. And they started to fall under the glamour and the seduction of this little bitty snake. And one of the people said, let's bring it home. Let's bring it back to the village so everyone can see it. And another says, no, it belongs here. It belongs here in its place, in its home. It's not, we shouldn't be taking it out. But those that wanted to move it and to take it back, they won over and they brought it into the village. And all the people in the village came to see it and it's so beautiful. But it was out of its place and out of its time. And when things are out of place and out of time, they begin to change. And this little serpent began to grow. Its appetites began to be much stronger. You know, first the people could feed it little bits and the things that they can find in nature. But then it began to grow and it's always getting stronger, always getting bigger, and always hungry. And so as time went on, the village would come and they would bring offerings. And as it grew in beauty and seduction, people from other villages came and they brought it offerings. And all these things were fed to this little snake, which was now becoming a big snake. And the big snake began to grow again. And at some point, all the offerings and all the things that the people were bringing were not enough. And so to feed the snake, they began to farm the land much more intensely, maybe not moving their crops. They began to fish the waters so that they were taking more than they needed, more to feed the snake. And they were not leaving enough to reproduce. And they began to harvest the wild things in the woods, the animals, the herbs, the plants. And all of this was becoming great, thinner and thinner as the people began to keep feeding this snake. Well, the snake, it was never enough for this snake. It always was growing. But as it grew, more people fell under its spell. And what happened was that if there's not enough here, then somewhere else there is more. And we can take that to feed the snake. And so wars began. One tribe would actually war on another for food, for land. But while they were doing this, the snake was learning to eat the people that fell in the war. It was becoming something much more. And it began to keep growing. And others were falling under its spell, and others were going, oh, this is not working. But there were those that became its protector. They became the access between the people and this beautiful serpent, because it was beautiful. There's no doubt it had great beauty, and many people were attracted to it. But even as the wars happened, the serpent actually continued to grow. And what happened was that then, because it had learned to prey on the falls of war, it began to prey on the sick, and it began to prey on the old people. And it began to prey on those who were different, who maybe had a handicap, or maybe they were just not the same. You know, and at first the people turned their eye and just said, it's so beautiful. You know, we'll just turn our back on that. And other people said, no, this is not right. We have to do something. But they didn't know what to do. The people that were guarding the snake were very powerful. They couldn't get access to fight it. And when they tried, it didn't work. And all the while, the snake still was growing. It was still getting bigger, bigger and bigger and bigger and more powerful. So in a time of change is what happens. The circle turns. And after many generations, the young people said, this is not right. We've got to do something. We've got to do something. What do we do? And so they began to seek out the people, the old ones, the elders who were left, those that maybe remembered some of the teachings. And when they went to them, they said, well, you need to go and you need to learn to listen. You need to go to the woods. You need to walk. And you need to open your heart. And so they tried. And at first they're going, oh, this isn't working. What do they mean? What's happening here? And so they would come back to their teachers, and their teachers would say, no, go back out. You have to do it again. And they did it again and again and again, until they began to actually hear. They began to hear whispers on the wind. The people of the Finger Lakes are people of the great trees. And the trees began to welcome them with open arms. So did the waters of the lakes. And they began to learn. And slowly, over time, they came together. And they went to the great trees from the oak, they learned about their strength, about their power. They learned about reaching from the sky, bringing the energy down to the earth. They learned that they were more than what they thought, that they had strength that they didn't even know. And they went to the willow, which is the tree of love. And they learned that they could bend in the winds of change and not break. And then some of them went to the white pine, which is the tree of peace. And they learned to calm their minds and to be able to go deeper and begin to remember, to connect with the ancestors and to know. And as they did this, new wisdom began to emerge. They became more. And the powerlessness that they were feeling was not so much. And so they came together and they knew what they were going to do. So what they did was they took the sacrifice of the trees and they carved a great bow, a really huge bow. And this was carved through the will of the people. And they went to the animal people, and through their sacrifice, they made a great string that connected to this bow. And from the people who were the wingeds, they took the feathers and they attached them to this arrow. And so they went looking for this great serpent. And at some point, they found it on the top of a great hill, a hill that overlooks the Finger Lakes. One of the stories says that it overlooks Canandaigua Lake, but this could be a story from anywhere. And so the people took that great bow and they climbed the hill, and the serpent, this serpent became really angry. You know, you're challenging me. You can't do this. And it reared up with its two heads, you know, and it struck and it struck. But the people held steady and they pulled that great bow and they shot the arrow of truth deep into the heart of the serpent. But as we know, when things have to die, sometimes they don't die peacefully. Sometimes it's not an easy thing. You know, we've all seen this. And this serpent began to thrash, and it began to thrash. Its tail, its heads, it's the two heads, all of this in its dying throes. And as it did this, it cleared all the trees off the top of the hill. And when it finally died with a great bang, it split the earth. And out of its mouth came all the bones of the people that it had eaten and that it had ground up. And these bones fell into the cracks. And they became, over time, they became one. And now you see these rocks, and you just don't find them in the Finger Lakes. You find them all over the world. They're rocks that look sometimes like the back of a turtle, or sometimes like a gray rock that has white veins. These are the stones. These are the stones that the ancestors have left with their bones to help us remember. Because they want us to know that we can go back to connect with our nature, connect with the great trees, with the plants, with the animals. And we can pull together the will of the people, thread it with our love, and shoot the arrow of truth. Yaki kuyaki.
Oh, Nike Kuyaki. Thank you, Lucinda. That was just wonderful. Yay!
Welcome.
That was great. You did, it was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for your wisdom. You know, Lucinda's been, I met her after I moved here to Greensboro through my friend Sandy that's in the group had introduced us. And, you know, we just connected right off, and she's just been a big support on my journey and helped me through some challenges.
Not your technological ones, that's Lisa.
With her wisdom, and I so appreciate it. And thank you for sharing with us this evening.
Yeah.
I'm going to read a poem.
Okay.
I like
to read a poem. I'd like to close with a prayer.
Oh, you go ahead. Why don't you close? You want me to read the poem first? How do you want to do that?
I'll do the prayer too. So if you'd close your eyes for just a minute.
Okay.
We're a Kocha, and all the celestial beings whose song is sung by the sun, the stars, and in our heart. Pachamama and nature beings whose body and breath give us life and sustain us. Hear the singing of our grateful hearts tonight. Be with us always as we walk the path of beauty and begin to remember the fullness of who we are. Teach us to listen and be still, so we can hear the whispers of our ancestors on the wind and the water and in the memories of the stones. Open our hearts to the wisdom and lessons held by the trees, so we too can connect through the three worlds. Feed the seeds of our souls with the fire of becoming. and ground the energies of change at these times.
I think I'm going to leave it at that. That seems perfect.
You sure?
Yeah, that seems perfect.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
This was my virgin online experience.
It was very good. Very good. So I'll see you all. We'll gather around again next Tuesday. And like I said, I'm going to announce, we'll do this. I'm going to do the Sunday night sharing circle. So you'll get that announcement also. So if you feel called to come in to that circle, please come. And that'll be on Sunday evening, but I'll do that announcement tomorrow. So I'm really grateful for y'all gathering, and I just love the connections that are happening through these virtual sacred fire as we gather around the sacred fire. So you all have a wonderful week and many blessings. A night.
Nice to see you, Louie.
Good night.
Yeah.
Love you all. Bye.
Bye.
You.
Bye.